She doesn't trust you.
I guess.
Okay, I'm Bree, and the claim I am refuting today is that the use of domestic UAS drones fails to affect personal privacy. My opponent's secondary claims were, the first one was that domestic UASs have the same functionality to police departments as their current helicopters, and two, that domestic UAS operators have to abide by current privacy laws. His first claim for the secondary claim is that police departments acquire warrants to use sensors and equipment on helicopters for the information they gather on suspects during operations, and that they have to follow the same process for the use of similar equipment, then they fall into the same precedences. While those supporting facts are true, the advocate kind of made a sweeping generalization, and he did not present enough evidence and examples to support this claim that there are other devices that in fact follow under the same precedent as would a drone. Of course, the evidence he uses, he cited a source from the domestic, it was an article by Peter Finn, and it was the domestic use of aerial drones by law enforcement likely to prompt privacy debate, and it was written January 23rd of 2011. And it stated about, it was a case of Texas agents, and it was for the first time they were implementing drones for the SWAT team to arrest a suspect. And those claims, he just did not have enough evidence to back up. Yes, these claims are true, but he did not back up what other devices are there that they use. If they're just as sufficient as police helicopters, then what's the point of police using the drones? His secondary claim was that domestic UAS operators have to abide by current privacy laws. He quoted in one of his, it was an article by Christina Sturbins, and was about if people should be freaking out about drones sweeping and looking over the windows. The FAA regulations that he cited were that operators are not allowed to fly above 400 feet. When I did more research, the FAA, in fact, does not handle any privacy regulations. That is not their specialty. And he also, to back up, he has a fact that an individual has to follow privacy laws. Like, for example, someone cannot just walk onto someone's property and peek through somebody's window. Well, that sort of begs the question. Of course, no one can do that, but people still do it, so what stops a drone operator from peeping into someone's private property? And he also made, to back up his claim, an article about Google and how it took a picture of a woman's cat through her window, and that it could take street view pictures in public areas that show into someone's private residence. I didn't really see how the Google article was that much relevant to his claim. Yes, Google, I could see where the privacy laws are, but also it had nothing to do with actual drones that are intruding on people's privacy. And I would also like to challenge his evidence. On the evidence, it was a man that stated, quote unquote, that you do not have a right to privacy over what can be seen while driving through the speed limit past your house. And that was wrote by a Boing Boing reader, and Boing Boing is a website that is a blog page where people can post about Disney, sci-fi, fantasy, literally anything, and it's all based on public opinion, so why should we believe someone who's not, let's say, FAA regulated, or someone from the government, maybe a police department who can back up privacy claims? It's just coming from a reader. So, in conclusion, in one of his articles, it was by, the Privacy in the Drones article, it said that there is not enough drones in actual airspace for there to be a problem. The quote in the article stated that the American drone era is in its adolescent phase, with the machine's numbers steadily increasing, though still remaining small enough to keep drone snooping out of most people's lives most of the time. So the claim he is arguing and advocating for, it's not really much of a problem. So it's not really much of an argument if no one directly is that much affected, if it's still in the early stages. And that's it.
Excuse me. All right, the preview of the points was fine. You signpost the individual points as you get to them, although once you get onto that second point, it turns into an awfully long argument, and it's much more involved than the first point was. On the first point, you basically are talking about the analogy to helicopters, and it all comes down to basically, if they have helicopters, why do they need drones? I think there would probably be a reason why, cost issues, for instance, would be a main thing. Safety, maybe maneuverability, that sort of thing. And then the question about whether the laws apply or whether warrants are going on, I'm not sure that most people's concern about drone privacy comes from what the police would be doing with them, although that might be part of what's going on. But I don't remember that this argument was just limited to law enforcement. If it was, then you need to explain why the law enforcement restrictions would be inadequate. I mean, police, maybe they look for loopholes. There are all kinds of problems there. I don't know. There could be something that is a potential drawback there. But like I said, I'm not sure that it was limited to law enforcement use of drones. On the second argument, I do think you have an interesting point that the FAA has no responsibility for regulating privacy issues. I thought that was okay. The question about privacy issues, though, then comes up, and you kind of dismiss Google as not being relevant because we're not talking about the same thing. And then you go to the Boing Boing article, which I thought was a reasonable press on this, that it's basically just a blog page where somebody has posted their opinion, somebody who's not an expert on privacy laws, and they've got an interesting opinion. But why is it important to believe? I think you ought to look at the quote they said, that you don't have a right to privacy if it's in view of anybody who's driving down the street at the speed limit. I think you should be turning around and saying, I'm sorry, there's no street running behind my bedroom window at the back of the house. There's no street that's flying over my house looking in my backyard. If you are Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and you've got a 400-acre ranch, and your house is in the center of that, there's no road that's running by those places. But you know what is running over those places? Drones that have cameras in them. And that's where the privacy issue comes into play. So I think you kind of went with the surface argument on that evidence instead of looking at what the actual point is. And that I agree. If you're walking in front of your window naked and the window faces the street out front, you don't really have much expectation of privacy. But if you're sleeping in your bedroom on the 20th floor of an apartment building in downtown Los Angeles, and you have your windows open and you get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and you happen to sleep in the nude, and there's a drone out there taking your photograph, I think you might have an expectation that your privacy is being violated in that situation. I mean, all that takes is a hypothetical example. You don't even need evidence on that particular point. So I just think you need to go a little bit deeper on some of those issues. All right, thank you.